Access to Democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Crutchfield Dermatology, a full-service treatment center and Medi-Spa in Eagan. Their goal is to help you look good and feel great with beautiful skin. With service built around courtesy, dignity, and respect, Mayo-trained Dr. Charles Crutchfield personally treats each patient and is acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. Truestone Financial, with locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin, has proudly served its members since 1939. Truestone engages, educates, and supports its members to ensure they have the tools to empower their financial well-being. Truestone Financial, your neighborhood credit union. Learn more at truestone.org. Edina Eye Physicians and Surgeons, a division of Twin Cities Eye Consultants, has proudly served the Twin Cities for more than 55 years now in 7 convenient locations. Using the most advanced technology combined with human touch, Edina Eye offers comprehensive services and dedicated specialists committed to excellence with innovative procedures and expertise for the most advanced eye care.
And welcome back to Access to Democracy. Alan Miller with you, and we have a return guest. It's been much too long since he's been here last. Brian Freeman. Pandemic got in our way, and what can I say about Brian Freeman? He is the author who James Patterson hopes to be when he grows up. You've won just about every award that's out there, but let's talk about how you got into this business. I can't believe it's only 18 years since you really started writing books, but what led you into this? How did you get into it?
Well, I'm one of those people that writing books for a living, that's been my dream as far back as I can remember. I can remember sitting in 6th grade class working on my first mystery novels. So, publishing has always been a tough, crazy business in which to break in. And I kept knocking on the door, and it took a long time, and I had a lot of other jobs along the way. But about 18 years ago, my very first book, Immoral, came out, the first in the Duluth-based Jonathan Stride series. And it was sold in 17 languages and was named an International Book of the Month, so it was in book clubs all around the world. And it's been an amazing ride since then. I think at this point now I've got about 25 books in the marketplace. So I love the fact that I get to do this for a living. It really is a dream come true.
According to my research, you have 46 countries that carry your books in 22 or 23 languages.
Yeah, I think it's up to 24 languages now.
24.
Yeah. So.
Of course, you're eliminating everything in Russian, so it'll be down to 23. But and you have 25 that are still in circulation at the moment.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, I've upped my pace. Readers kept complaining about the fact when it was only a book a year, and so I bumped it up to 2 books a year a few years back, and now for the last 3 years or so, I've actually done 3 books a year, and I'm doing that this year as well. And
you work on 3 books at one time.
I've gone back and forth. There have been years in which I'm doing a couple books simultaneously, and I'll do a week or 2 on one, and then I'll trade off and go back and forth. Last year I switched it around again. I actually did all of the books successively, and I liked being able to focus on one book at a time. But at the same time, when it all kind of depends on when the deadlines are, and when you've got deadlines that are pretty close together, a lot of times you end up having to kind of trade off and work on more than one book simultaneously.
So with that first book, did you have an agent for that?
Yeah,
right.
That's right. Yeah.
Which is so important in this business, to get an agent.
It is. I mean, for all the changes in the business since then in terms of self-publishing and the rise of Amazon and sort of the new look of book selling. Nonetheless, if you're serious about getting anywhere in the book business, having an agent is still, I think, the most important thing.
And the agent opened the door for that first book.
Yep, that's exactly right.
And that was the Jonathan Stride series, and I'm a big Jonathan Stride fan, as you know. I'm looking forward to this fall when another Jonathan Stride book is coming out.
Yeah, that will be November 1st. The Zero Night will be coming out, and that'll be the 11th Jonathan Stride novel. So I always love going back to Stride. It's been a couple years now since Funeral for a Friend, which was the last Stride novel. But even when I'm working on other books, I can still kind of feel Stride at my side, sort of poking me and asking when he's going to get back on stage.
Well, you have one that came out in February, and it's sitting on the table in front of me, the Ursulina.
Yeah.
And it is blowing everything away in the industry. It is so well reviewed, and it's been so successful in the stores that let's talk about it. It's how would you describe it? A psychological thriller?
It is. I like to write thrillers that have a real emotional core, where you're really going to be pulled into the stories of the characters, and that is the Ursulina to a T. People have asked me, is the Ursulina a standalone novel? Is it a prequel to my preceding book, The Deep, Deep Snow, which won the Minnesota Book Award last year? Is it a follow-up novel to The Deep, Deep Snow? And my answer to all of those is sort of yes. It actually fits into all of those categories. It stands on its own as its own book with its own heroine and story. It goes before my book, The Deep, Deep Snow, and yet it also carries that book forward. So those two books work hand in hand, and I have to say, for all the books that I've written, The Deep, Deep Snow and the Ursulina are probably the two that are closest to my heart, because they really have such an emotional core to them. And people are probably wondering about the title, the Ursulina, which is unusual. But there's a legend.
We've heard of Sasquatch,
yes,
and we've heard of Bigfoot,
right,
and we've heard of the Yeti, and now we have the Ursulina.
Yeah, when I was first creating this fictional Midwestern world in The Deep, Deep Snow, I thought this is just the kind of area that would have one of these legends of a beast in the forest. And so I came up with the idea of the Ursulina, and this myth sort of began to take on a larger and larger role in The Deep, Deep Snow. And then when it came time to do another book, I decided to sort of make the essence of that legend sort of overlay the whole story. And I think it's fun for the readers, and it also adds a real sense of sort of mystery and depth to what's going on in the story.
I have to say, and you know that Sharon, who reads all your books, was blown away by this book. When I read it, it had so many twists and turns that I had to see a chiropractor twice just to get my back straightened out, because it was really incredible in that regard.
Well, I love to make readers keep turning the pages until it's 3 a.m. and that bag of Doritos is empty, and you wonder where the time went.
And you know, there's such a temptation to look ahead.
Yeah, don't do that.
To look ahead and how does this happen? What's happening here? And as I say, I'm not going to spoil it, but the twists and turns and with the ending of this one, this may just unique. This
may be my favorite ending, both in terms of twists and in terms of emotion of all of my books. I love the Ursulina. I love the narrator and heroine, Rebecca Calder. She and I, it's when you write a book in first person, you really have to sort of develop a relationship with the main character, and sometimes that's harder than others. Rebecca and I just clicked from the beginning in writing this book, and so the Ursulina, it was a very moving book to write, because Rebecca has such a deep story to tell.
Now, there's some very feminine stuff in this book.
Yeah.
And I know that you partner with a lady by the name of Marcia Freeman.
Sure. Yeah.
And Marcia, who I'm still waiting to get on this program, who has a website called The Author's Wife, and who handles the business end, so you can write all the time. I mean, you've had a great partnership there.
Right.
Was Marcia helpful with all the feminine aspects of this, or how did you really acclimate yourself to that?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, Marcia's my first reader, and my best editor, and so when I get a book done, she's the one that really goes through it in detail, and I think we should buy stock in 3M for all the Post-it notes that she goes through reading the book. But she's looking at all of the story elements and all the character elements, and then we just go back and forth about the details.
Does this work? Does this not
exactly.
work?
Exactly. Yeah. And this is a book where that's very important. What I loved in Marianne Grossman's review in the Pioneer Press, she was talking about the fact that there are scenes where Rebecca is talking to her newborn baby and the love that she has for her child. And Marianne was saying in her review that a lot of readers thought that it captured it so well that those scenes had to have been written by a woman. And to me, as a writer, that's there you go. That's
just
really,
happened to have
just
it. Just
happened to have it. And of course, she names it one of her best books of 2022 so
yes.
far, and that's fantastic.
And I don't think she said so far. I just think it's going to be one of the best books of 2022.
Thank
is what
you.
she said, and I have no doubt. However, last year you won another award for Minnesota book.
Yeah, the Deep Deep Snow won the Minnesota Book Award. It was a finalist for the Edgar Award, and the Deep Deep Snow and the Ursulina, they just fit together hand in glove. I mean, the stories stand completely on their own in a lot of ways, and yet they're also books that are sort of intimately combined. So readers have been asking, will I stop there? Is the Ursulina the end, or do I continue the story of Shelby from the Deep Deep Snow and Rebecca from the Ursulina?
You might not even know.
And I don't know. I truly don't. I mean, part of me, I love those characters so much that I would love to meet them again and share more stories with them. And yet the emotional closure that comes with the Ursulina just feels like the perfect capstone for those two books. So I'm sort of reluctant to open it back up too.
But you always leave yourself the opportunity.
Yes.
To go back if it so strikes you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and what the interesting thing when you're plotting out books and when you're writing series books like with the Stride series, is there are always there's always little stories that come up from the characters that the characters seem to be way ahead of me in that regard. I'll go back through an earlier book and I realize, oh, that's something that a character mentioned that I can pull out and do more with in another book, and wouldn't have been in my mind at the time, but it's almost as if the characters have these stories that are waiting for me to discover them.
Now, your first hardcover book was Spilled Blood, if I'm not mistaken.
No, they were all in hardcover. Spilled Blood was my first pure standalone thriller, so that was not part of the Stride series.
And it was also an award winner.
And that won the Thriller Award for Best Hardcover Novel,
Yeah.
which was just extraordinary. So
you mentioned the Edgar Awards.
Yeah.
Tell folks what the Edgar Awards are.
the Edgar Awards, that's kind of like the Academy Awards for mystery writers. So I've been a finalist in the Edgar Awards twice now. Immoral was named as a finalist for Best First Novel, and then last year The Deep Deep Snow was a finalist for Best Paperback Originals. So and that's just an amazing honor because the Edgars are writers judging writers. So the people that are selecting the finalists are other people who write in their genre. So that their opinion means a lot.
Now, did you submit the Ursulina for this year's Edgar?
It'll be for next year's, actually.
Next year's.
Yeah. So we'll be crossing our fingers.
Yeah, I have no doubt that.
That's what I just love this book. People have asked me for years, do you have a favorite among your novels? And that's kind of like trying to pick, your favorite child. So I love all my books for different reasons. But the Ursulina is very, very special to me, and I hope it will be to readers as well.
Now, we haven't mentioned one big factor in your life, which is that you are Robert Ludlum.
That's true. A couple years ago, the Ludlum estate and the Putnam Publishing Group selected me to carry on Robert Ludlum's Jason Bourne series, and so I now have 2 Jason Bourne novels out in the marketplace, and my third, The Bourne Sacrifice, will be coming out July 26th. And for me, that's been such an honor and so much fun. I mean, I was a Ludlum fan and a Jason Bourne fan all the way back when I was a teenager. I can remember reading The Bourne Identity when I was 17 years old. And if you had told me, 40 years earlier that one of these days I'd have a book coming out that would have Ludlum's name and my name on the cover, I would have thought, oh, that's just crazy.
You take Jason Bourne, you take Ludlum's concept, and how do you run with it?
Yeah, I talked to Putnam about that, because with a iconic character like Bourne, who's been through so many iterations in books and in the movies, and goes back to literally 1980 when the first book came out, I said, I don't think you can just sort of continue the series. I think what you really need to do at this point is reboot the Bourne series and go back to the character that Ludlum created and try to really authentically bring that character to life again in an all-new setting, all-new plot. So my first Bourne novel was The Bourne Evolution, and it's really like starting the whole series over. It's
he
Ludlum's
still
character.
had a lack of memory loss.
Exactly, yeah.
He doesn't know where he came from.
Right, and so it's true to Ludlum's character, but it's an all-new story surrounding him. And so both Ludlum fans and Bourne fans, I think, can enjoy it, but then folks that may not have read any of the Bourne novels can just dive right in with that book.
And then, as a result of that, what was spawned?
Then we had the Bourne Treachery, which came out last summer, and now the Bourne Sacrifice coming out this summer, and soon I'll be diving into my fourth Bourne novel. So,
well, that tells us something about the family of Ludlum and the publisher.
Yeah,
because obviously, if you're into your fourth one, they certainly have to be happy.
Yeah, we've had a great response from readers, both new readers embracing the series and Ludlum fans and aficionados. One of the highest compliments I can get is from readers who write to me and say, "Gosh, it's like opening up a Robert Ludlum novel again," and that, to me, that's just great.
Now, Matt Damon's getting a little long in the tooth for the movies.
Well, don't tell him that.
But
I
in
would
his
love,
50s.
Yeah, well, of course, you've got you got Liam Neeson. He's what, almost 70, and he's still out there doing chase scenes. So, but boy, it sure seems to me like it would be an ideal time to bring the Bourne series back in the movies as well. So,
is there any talk about that?
We'll see. These kind of things they take forever to go on in Hollywood. But the series itself was so successful that I certainly am crossing my fingers that even if it's not Matt Damon, that we see an all new Jason Bourne come to life just like he did in my books.
Well, 007 is
exactly
come to life. In fact, the new 007 I think is a female.
I haven't heard what they're going to do with the next Bond, but yeah, that's the thing. I mean, Bourne, I think, is a character that has such an interesting core to him that he can be reimagined every few years in books and movies. So the timing feels right.
The amazing thing about 007 is he's now become Macbeth.
Yeah, that's right.
And well, you mentioned something about hearing from your fans. I know you like to hear from your fans. You actually have a website. And why don't you give us the name of your website?
Yeah, I do love hearing from fans, and Marcia and I both really make it a priority to do outreach with readers, and we're always getting back in touch with folks that write by email and post on Facebook and Twitter. My website is bfreemanbooks.com. It's all one word, bfreemanbooks.com, and there's summaries of all of my books on the site, ways to purchase them online. Folks can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/bfreemanfans, and on Twitter and Instagram at bfreemanbooks.
And there's a monthly Brian Freeman newsletter.
Yep. I send out an email newsletter. You can sign up for that on my website. In fact, I was just working on the March newsletter in the few minutes before I headed off to the studios.
Yeah, and I just read the February one again last night, and it really is full of information and updates.
Yeah, and that's where I announce each new book as it's coming out and provide links to that. And I always try to link to online interviews and things that I've got. So it's a good way to kind of keep in touch and know what's coming out next. Yeah, on my website, bfreemanbooks.com, there's a link people can sign up for my email newsletter.
And some of us have done that.
Yes, indeed.
And,
Yeah.
Now, I mentioned Marcia in passing, but the fact of the matter is Marcia is so much a part of your partnership that we really can't do an interview without giving her credit. As you said, she's your first reader
Yep, yep.
and your best editor, and et cetera. But you have a long-term marriage.
Yeah, it's 38 years now at this point.
That's
so.
hard to believe when you're only 39. So. But 38 years, and she takes care of the business end of it.
Yeah, well, you know, that's the writing is such an introspective, introverted kind of profession, and being self-employed is such an all-consuming business that you know, having her as a partner in the business is real important for both of us. I mean, it means that we can really share, you know, the business side and the personal side, and we get a chance to work together, and we love that. So we always joke that, well, you know, that's the reason why we got married, is we like to spend time together. So.
Now, writing is a lonesome business.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I know you have a routine that you generally, when you work out in the mornings, you will be on audiobooks for fiction, and I know that you mentioned that you read in the evenings, generally nonfiction.
Right, yeah.
Someplace along the line, you get the opportunity to read newspapers and stay conversant with what's going on in the world, depressing as that may be.
Yeah, I think I subscribe to 4 different newspapers, so that's always, it's the Star Tribune, the Pioneer Press, the Duluth News Tribune, and the Wall Street Journal. So I like to keep on top of things. So.
Yeah, well, that's funny because ours is the only house that gets the New York Times, the Star Tribune, the Pioneer Press, and online, the Washington Post.
Right.
And I spend much too much time each day on each of those. But the fact of the matter is, it really keeps you in touch with everything that's going on.
It does. And, you know, a lot of my books, my Stride novels, my Bourne novels, have kind of a ripped from the headlines feel to them. And so, you know, it helps to sort of stay on top of what's going on in the world. And, you know, the true crimes and other kinds of things, you never know where inspiration is going to come from. So I'm always kind of paying attention to things that happen that could end up being the inspiration for a new plot.
Now, speaking of Jonathan Stride, who as you know is one of my favorites, where does Jonathan find himself in this coming version?
Well, this novel follows on the heels of Funeral for a Friend, which was the last Stride novel, and some rather significant things happened to Stride in that book, and so he's sort of recovering from injuries he suffered in that novel.
Well,
and so
nothing like having your main character get shot in the first chapter and be a death's door.
Right, right. Yeah, that was a very emotional close to that book. But as a result, I think it means that, you know, you've got Stride in the Zero Night is questioning a lot of things about his life, and you know, and one of the nice things about a long-term series is that you can focus on different characters and explore their stories. And so the Zero Night really, in a lot of ways, is Serena's novel. Serena is Stride's wife, and there's elements of her past that I felt needed to be further explored in a book. And so Serena and her past drive a lot of the action of the Zero Night.
Where do you get the names?
Of the characters of the books?
Yes, the characters.
You know, they can come from a lot of different places. You know, a character like Stride, that's a very meaningful name, because Stride has this dogged, step-by-step kind of approach to getting to the truth, and so Stride reinforces that. Some names come from unusual places. My San Francisco hero, Frost Easton, actually comes from a highway sign down in southern Minnesota, where the town of Frost is in one direction and the town of Easton is in the other direction. And
that's another book we didn't talk about.
Yeah,
and there have been several of those.
So I saw that sign and thought, well, Frost Easton, that's the perfect name for a character. And then I also do I do regular fundraisers with nonprofit organizations where people will bid on the chance to have their name as a character in the book. And so usually in every book. I was
wondering about that.
Yeah, usually in every book there's a character that's been you know, sort
or
of
someone
raffled
that you
off by a
know or
nonprofit.
something like that.
Oh yeah, I have a little fun with some of my friends too.
Yeah.
So.
Another thing, and of course Stride is mostly a Minnesota character.
Sure.
But you visit the locations as much as you can.
I
for
try to.
the
It's been a
books.
little tricky these past couple of years.
Especially with Bourne.
Yeah, exactly. So the Bourne novels, they tend to have sort of more glamorous locations, so I've tried to pick places that Marcia and I have at least visited, because the last couple of years nobody's been doing a lot of travels. So.
And when you're visiting these places, are you taking notes?
Sure.
Are you taking pictures?
Both. Yep.
Right.
Yeah. I because my feeling is that I want to give readers a you are there feel, like you've been dropped down into every scene and you can hear it and smell it and touch it and taste it and feel it happening all around you. And I want to be able to evoke not only the physical sensations of being there, but the emotions of how a place kind of affects you. How does it feel in your gut to be there?
And it's so important to do that, where people feel, or they can recognize. One of the first things I ever wrote, it wasn't a novel, but I pictured a location where there was a waterfall in a hotel, and it was coming down, and somebody read it and said, I honeymooned there. Well, it is a place that I had been, and I remembered it, and that's the biggest compliment you can get, is when somebody recognizes what you're, and also lends so much to the authenticity of what you're writing.
It does, and in thrillers, place really adds to the drama of what's going on. I'm trying to find locations that will enrich the suspense of what's happening.
And, well, you do it. So, in the little bit of time we have left, we want to repeat your email address again for people.
Yeah, they can go to my website, bfreemanbooks.com, and I have links there to be able to send me emails and to join my email list and find out information about all of my books. And after the Ursulina, I've still got 3 more books coming up later this year. The Bourne Sacrifice arrives on July 26th. I have a wonderful sort of out there, creepy standalone thriller called I Remember You, which comes out on August 9th.
We didn't even talk about that.
Yeah, that one's coming too. I love that book. And then everyone's favorite Duluth detective, Jonathan Stride. The Zero Night comes out November 1st.
Well, the difference between God and Brian Freeman is that on the 7th day he rested, but Brian does not.
No, there's not a lot of rest in the Freeman household, but that's okay. I love what I do. I've been waiting to do this my whole life, so it's a lot of work, but I get such satisfaction from having the books out there, and that's why I love hearing from readers who have enjoyed the novels.
And it's so good to have you back in studio.
It is.
Where we don't have to either Zoom or deal with each other long distance.
Yeah, I was getting kind of tired of doing Zoom events and staring at my own face on the monitor. It's nice to be back live again.
We've been talking with Brian Freeman, who's the author of everything. I didn't even know about the 4th book that's going to be out soon. But mention again the titles of the books that are out.
Yep, the
Ursulina
is out now, and then the Bourne Sacrifice, July 26th. I Remember You comes out on August 9th, and then the Zero Night comes out on November 1st, and they're all available for pre-order right now.
Brian Freeman, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.